Alright, today we're discussing the ICWH727, the new signature model unveiled for Wes Hauch. It's an amazing looking guitar for an amazing player, but man, that price tag, it's 10 grand. This makes it pretty much unobtainable, but it is available for pre-order now, it looks like. So let's talk about it. As you can probably tell, I'm not sponsored by Ibanez or any brands shown or mentioned or anything. But let's jump right in. Let's kick off this discussion talking about the specs of the guitar. As you can clearly see, it's a 7-string Iceman and it has a 27-inch scale length. Very appropriate for a modern 7-string, and the neck is 3 pieces. It's 3-piece of maple with purple heart in the middle. The neck dimensions are pretty much what you'd expect from an Ibanez. It has an 18mm thickness at the first fret and 20mm thickness at the 12th. The fretboard radius is 430 millimeters, no surprises there. And the fretboard is bound rosewood. So if you're a fan of rosewood, great. If you were hoping this would be ebony, too bad, I guess. And it looks like there's no truss rod cover, which I'm a fan of. Easy access to the truss rod, which you might be adjusting a lot, maybe not. But there is the string retainer tree thing, which you might have to lift up or remove to access that truss rod. It depends. Like if you have one of these side wrench socket things to adjust the truss rod, then obviously you'll have to remove that retainer. But if you have more of a straight tool, something like that, then maybe not. Moving on to the body, as you can see, it has a flame maple top. The website says this top, this flame maple, is 4 millimeters of thickness. And then the rest of the body, the back of the body, is African mahogany. There's binding around the top of the body, very classy looking. But it looks like there's no forearm carve. Maybe if you're considering this guitar, that might be a deal breaker for you. The only guitar I have without real forearm accommodations is this Tele here, and it's manageable. Obviously, it's playable. A lot of people play Telecasters. But I wouldn't say the Tele is the zenith of ergonomic guitar design. There is a belly carve though, so at least there's that. Speaking of carves though, there is a carve on the front of the body by the upper frets, so you have an easier time accessing all 24 of them. There's also contouring on the top back of the lower horn, so if you're playing thumb behind the neck style, it's gonna hit the back of your playing hand, hopefully less. I mean, there's still that kind of point at the end of the lower horn, so maybe that'll get in the way. Tough to say. I'm not a big Iceman guy. I think they look real cool, but I've personally been moving away from like Explorer and Iceman shaped guitars. The Super Strat, while really common, is pretty much the best guitar shape for me personally. If other guitar shapes work for you too, and I have some other guitar shapes, but if other guitar shapes work for you too, you know, that's great. These are tools for making music, and it's important to find the right tool for you. There also seem to be clip locks screwed into this guitar, so that's great if you're a fan of those. I used to use them a long time ago. They're pretty decent. I didn't really like the material of the strap that goes with it. And there are some people who report the clips themselves ding up the guitar, so they cause cosmetic damage in the long run. That didn't really happen to me, but maybe it would happen to you if you got this guitar and used it long term. Normally not the biggest of deals, but given the price tag, that might hurt. What do you think about these? Do you like clip locks? Anyway, as I mentioned before, there are 24 jumbo frets, and it doesn't specify if they're stainless steel or not. And when it doesn't do that on the Ibanez website, that means they are going to be nickel silver. I personally prefer stainless steel frets. I like how smooth they feel, and it does give you some peace of mind how durable they are. Of course, not all steel is created equally. There are different mixtures, qualities. Just like with nickel silver, there's different alloys. Maybe this is a stronger alloy. Maybe they're using more zinc. I don't know. I'm not a material scientist. I'm just guessing here. Moving on to the bridge, it's the Low Pro Edge 7 tremolo. Awesome stuff. I'm a fan of the Low Pro. It is my favorite floating bridge, so I agree with using it on this guitar. Not that someone else's signature guitar needs my approval. Going to the back of the guitar, there's no cover for the trem cavity. If you're trying to make adjustments to the claw, that's great. Super easy access. The pickups are Wes's signature Seymour Duncan Jupiter Rail's humbuckers. No surprises there. The controls are pretty simple and straightforward. Very appropriate for a metal guitar. There's a 3-way switch in the typical Iceman place. You got your full neck, full bridge, and both. No fancy splitting or tapping or out of phase, anything like that. And then there's a single volume potentiometer. Pretty bare bones, everything you need, nothing you don't. Now, normally I don't talk about the string gauges, but it's interesting to see this come with 8s. And maybe that's because it's in standard tuning, but it has that baritone scale length, that 27-inch scale length. It's definitely going to make things easier on the hands. I've actually never played 8s before. I usually use 9s for standard tuning, and then on my drop C or whole step down guitars, I use 10s. Moving on though, to complete the package, there are Hipshot tuners. Great stuff. Now let's talk about my overall thoughts on this guitar. And of course, the elephant in the room is the price. Wow, this thing is expensive. I'll expand upon my thoughts in a bit, but this is basically going beyond any balance of quality versus affordability. I'm fairly certain you can have a full music career with a guitar that is a tenth of the price or less. Now, to expand upon this, is this going to be a good guitar? And I think, yes, it looks hella sick. It's gonna have that craftsmanship likely. You'll be spending top dollar on custom shop level stuff. Of course, this is speculation. I don't own this guitar. I'm not gonna own this guitar, and it is extremely unlikely that I'm ever gonna be playing one. So you could say the optimism I have in the quality is because I have overall positive sentiment with the Ibanez brand. I like a lot of the guitars that they've put out. I own a bunch of Ibanez. I frequently talk about Ibanez guitars on the internet. Not sponsored, I just like their stuff. But should you get this guitar? At this price point, you'd have to be a diehard fan and collector. But hey, at least it comes with a hard shell case, right? It is nice that they're not releasing a watered down version of this guitar, but I find there's a trade-off when you're purchasing a guitar between the affordability, the features you want, the quality and craftsmanship. There are diminishing returns typically on average with higher prices and quality. So for example, generally a $3,000 guitar is going to be a bit higher quality, better playing than a $2,000 guitar. But that difference I'm finding isn't as much as, say, between a $1,000 guitar and a $2,000 guitar. And then the difference between, say, $500 guitar and a $2,000 guitar is going to be massive. For all intents and purposes, if the guitar plays well, is stable, so it stays in tune, the neck doesn't shift too much, you're not adjusting the truss rod every day, you like how it plays and sounds and looks and all that, I think that's really all you need. For example, I've been favoring the RG550 Genesis lately in the past year or so. For example, I've been favoring the RG550 Genesis. It plays well, it's good quality, it's not too expensive. It's a great balance of all these things. And while a lot of people do change the pickups in these, I'm finding these sound good even with the stock pickups. For example, I used an RG550 Genesis in 2 of my songs on my recent release. On the songs 578 AD and Never Finished, I used the full bridge and position 4 for cleans, respectively. Shameless plug, but the point is, you don't need the most expensive guitar with all the craziest cutting-edge features to make music. You don't need a handcrafted masterpiece to get the job done. Of course, it is also far more tragic and painful if your expensive guitar gets lost, damaged, or stolen. Even putting playing wear on it can make you sweat. On the flip side, though, there is something special about owning a signature guitar from your favorite artist. You can still play them and use them. I do have some signature guitars in my collection, and while I wouldn't gig them and I use them sparingly in videos, they do bring me joy to play, and I do use them for recording sometimes. So if you have the means to get this guitar and you want this guitar, go for it. I would love to see one of these be used out in the wild. Would I get this guitar, you're probably asking? Well, first of all, when it comes to 7 strings, I find the solar guitars, the neck profile just does it for me. But then of course, the price. My most expensive guitar costs less than half of what this thing costs. And I do think the Iceman body is very cool, but as I mentioned earlier, I've since moved away from Explorer type guitars, and I know the Iceman is not an Explorer, but I'm pretty much classifying it into that general category. I think they look cool and all, but just not for me. And then hypothetically using the guitar, I would be afraid to even touch it. Way too expensive to damage. So overall, while I think it's cool that this signature model is finally seeing the light of day, it's kind of frustrating to see a guitar that wants to rock really hard but has a price tag preventing it from doing so. But what do you think? Is this the Wes Hauch signature guitar you've been waiting for? Are you just happy to see this thing being made even though you have no intention of buying it? Comment down below. Of course, dissenting opinions are welcome as long as you have the appropriate level of civility. This is YouTube, so I do have to say the YouTube things. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, print out every frame, and mail it. If you're looking for something cool to listen to, I've recently released a 6-song EP titled Bite the Air. It's got some cool stuff on there, some guitar work, not all metal, I've branched out, and some lyrics on there too. But hey, as always, peace.